a Zing me salvou, por isso que eu tenho um carinho muito grande. Ela vai me salvar 2 vezes. Ela me salvou na China e vai me salvar hoje, com a substituição do Adam. E por isso que eu quero que vocês recebam ela com muito carinho, porque ela fez um esforço gigante, gigante mesmo, para estar aqui oferecendo esse conteúdo para vocês. Por favor, Zing, please, come here.
Oh, thank you. How are you?
Fine. Zing, a Zing, só para vocês entenderem, ela trabalha no time, então, Digital Solution da Cargill.
Sí.
E habla muy bien espanhol também.
Oh, no.
Sim. E trabalha no time global da Cargill, desenvolvendo oportunidades, parcerias, né, com startups, empresas como a Agnes, e gerando negócio no mundo todo, mas ela cuida da Agnes no sudeste da China. Ela cuida então dos países de Tailândia, Singapura, Vietnã, então ela é responsável por isso. Zing, sincerely, I would like to tell you that you are amazing, that you are brave, determined, and you represent our culture, Agnes culture, okay? And you are a gift to us.
Oh.
Thank you. And thank you for your courage. And let's go with me, okay?
Okay.
Go ahead. You rock. Zing, for you.
Olá, bom dia. Thank you, everyone. My name is Zing. I'm from Singapore. Singapore is a very small island, 40 kilometers by 20 kilometers, 6 hours away from China. And I'm here today to talk to you about the evolution of farming in China. Now, a show of hands. How many of you have been to China? Oh, very good. Very well-traveled audience. Now, for the rest of you who may not have been to China, we have prepared a video for you to give you a sense of what is modern China like. So without further ado, let's take a look.
O rápido crescimento econômico está transformando a sociedade, criando um mercado altamente sofisticado. Precisamos medir e adaptar completamente. A China é um país em desenvolvimento, com uma grande população. Renda per capita. O rendimento anual disponível é apenas os 5 mil. Apenas 10% do que os EUA tinham no final de 2018. Ainda há 16,6 milhões de pessoas vivendo na pobreza, em áreas rurais. O boom econômico criou uma classe média mais densa. Uma força consumidora. Prevê-se que atinja 550 milhões em 3 anos. Isso é mais que 1,5 vezes o total do ZEU. População atual. Os consumidores chineses buscam cuidar de si mesmos, em meio ao estresse, congestão e poluição da vida urbana. Esperam aumentar seus gastos, aceitando preços mais altos e comprando produtos premium, produtos de valor agregado, especialmente em categorias de saúde e estilo de vida. Mas a maior revolução da China é digital. Sem dúvida, a população mais conectada do mundo. Apenas 20 milhões em 2000. Hoje, 730 milhões de pessoas, 95%, se conectam pelo celular. 80% pagam com o celular. Eles são superusuários digitais. Muitos deles só levam o celular. Quando saem, usam para chamar um táxi. Reserve um restaurante, compre ingresso de cinema, fazer um pagamento até no mercado de agricultores. Por outro lado, os consumidores podem desfrute de produtos e serviços em casa, através de pedidos e compras pelo celular, jantando e fazendo unhas, limpeza, etc. Geradores de opinião. As opiniões exercem enorme influência sobre consumidores digitais. Um endosso de celebridade ou comunidade. Um líder pode movimentar produtos das prateleiras e de armazéns e rapidamente. Até 2030, a digitalização na China pode mudar e criar valor, equivalente a 10 a 45% das fontes de receita, ao redor dos produtos de consumo, retalho, automotivo e mobilidade, saúde, fretes e logística. A Índia transformou-se, de ser vista como a fábrica de madeira, para se tornar um centro de inovação tecnológica. Apesar de ainda ser o centro da maioria dos problemas do necessidades mundo, de produção, fornecimento e aquisição, é emergindo como um novo motor global de inovação, com gigantes da tecnologia remodelando o comportamento do consumidor e melhorando a eficiência comercial, de comércio eletrônico a pagamento digital, de computação em nuvem a inteligência artificial. Por exemplo, relata-se que a China já ultrapassou o ZEUA no número de patentes de IA registradas e lidera a lista de países com o maior número de unicórnios de tecnologia. A indústria agrícola também experimentou. Grandes mudanças ocorreram nos últimos 10 anos. A indústria sofreu várias ondas de consolidação. Empresas antigas e desatualizadas foram eliminadas. Grandes empresas com eficiência operacional e capacidades inovadoras têm surgido, fornecendo uma base sólida para o povo chinês viver uma vida estável e próspera.
Okay, so hopefully this gives you a good idea of how China looks like now. Very modern, everybody is using a cell phone, and you're using it for payments, just for everything. And even now, we're using it for smart farming, which you will see later on. Now, for now, China produces and consumes half of all of the world's pork, as most of you may know. And there's a high concentration of global pork supply in the top 3 countries. So China, EU, and the US comprises about 80% of global supply. And China pork right now is entirely for domestic consumption, eaten in China, not exported. And we're talking about 55 million tons annually. That is a lot of pork. That is about 41 kilo of pork per person per year. And that is the #1 meat protein, which we will see. Pork is the #1 animal protein. If you look over here, you can actually see that we talked about 41 kilos of pork. And right now, as a percentage of the protein eaten in China, it's about 60%. You actually see it decreasing from the past to about 60% now, but the demand is robust. There is a very big middle rising income class that wants to eat more protein. These are people that in the past, they only ate vegetables, and now even a little bit of meat with a lot of people is a lot of pork. So if we were to see, there's actually a preference for freshly slaughtered pork. It makes it very difficult to centralize pork production, both geographically and in operational scale. Because when we go to a market, you don't want to go to a supermercado, you want to go to the sellers, you want to look at how they cut their pork, it must be fresh. They don't really eat frozen pork. You can see the statistics. Almost 70% warm, fresh meat, and 17% cold, chilled, and 15% processed. As a result, the industry is quite difficult to get to scale because you're actually looking at a lot of fragmentation. Now, most of you would have known that for Asia, and especially in China, there was this massive African swine fever, ASF. This first broke out in the 4th quarter of 2018. And the ASF outbreaks originally, they started in the economic zones, and it tended to increase southwards. You can see the red areas are really affected. And as a result, a lot of fatality in the pork. Like lots of sows died, young sows also got killed. People really didn't know what to do with it. And with the fragmentation, this really spread a lot. And so what happened? It led to the pork prices having this boom and bust situation. Now, these are the pork prices: China, Belgium, US, Brazil. The blue one is China's pork prices. Let's take a look at what happened. 2015 to 2018, pretty stable. There are some typical seasonal fluctuations, but you pretty much have a balanced pork demand and supply. But then, look, now you have a price surge because of ASF. Suddenly, 40% of China pork disappeared overnight in a few months. And so there's this massive price surge. And then what happened? Suddenly you have this big drop because in 2021 to 2022, the government came in to try to support. And there's a lot of government incentives. There's suddenly, Chinese, you give them money, suddenly everybody wants the money. Oversupply. And right now, you have both an oversupply situation as well as the current herd actually recovering. And suddenly now you have a pork glut, too much pork in the system. So prices drop. And now what happens? In 2023 to 2024, you have another wave of price swing because now you have the small farmers that cannot deal with the operating costs and the volatility. They decided, okay, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to exit. And then you also have renewed volatility from the biosecurity lapses, because again, we talked about fragmentation. These started having, pandemic, like an epidemic in different parts of China. And they have this sporadic ASF outbreak. So now you see a lot of volatility near the end. Now, where are we in 2025? Right now, prices are more stable. In fact, if you talk to the Cargill China office and our colleagues and the farmers, it's getting better. The pork prices are increasing a little bit steadily. And right now, there are some ongoing concerns about the oversupply and overdemand kind of cycle that is kind of embedded in the production. What does it mean for profit? At the end, you want money, 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 right? And so let's look at this. This red dot is when ASF hit. And let's see. We talked about ASF, right? And so with the shortage, prices went up a lot. You see that average profit per pig was about US $230. And at the peak, that was $430 at the top, which was a lot of money. But then you started going down. And here, with the high profitability, you have the stimulation of pork supply. And together, you remember the big pandemic, the COVID pandemic, pig farming started making losses. So now you see it's entering the negative terrain. And the average loss per pig was $100 per pig. In 2023, out of 12 months, 11 months was making a loss. And average production cost was about $2.35, but you could only sell it at $2. And so the average loss per pig was about $35. So now the Chinese farmers are really hurting a lot. Oh, back. Where are we now in 2025? The high profit phase has come to an end. The focus is now on improving efficiency, and enhancing profitability is the number one thing, which is why we're all here, because we want to have prosperity for all our farmers, correct? Good job. Now, let's talk about the reproductive sow herd. Our reproductive sow herd was also hit. Now it's stable, but let's take a look. You actually have 2017 to 2018, a very large and stable sow herd of about 43 to 45 million. And then in 2018 to 2020, because of ASF, the government says you have to kill the pigs, there's high mortality, there's forced culling, and we reached the lowest sow level in Q3 of 2019. So over here, that's about 30,000 or 30 million. And then in 2020 to 2021, the herd started rebuilding because the government started giving incentives, the pork prices encouraged more farmers to come to the system, and we managed to get close to peak level of about 44 million by late 2021. So you can actually see that, right? 2022 to 2023, we have overpopulation, overcorrection, and we have smaller farms that exit, and we have a lot of culled sows. So where are we in 2025? Now we have reached stabilization. You're looking at 38 to 40 million sows and a shift in focus to improving quality, productivity, rather than just, I want a lot of sows, So the government is pushing for better genetics, good for some of our genetic companies over here, higher PSY, and incentivizing the farmers to replace the low productivity sows. Also, they have implemented a lot of better biosecurity. And this is something that neighboring countries like Thailand, Vietnam is emulating and learning from. Lower profitability, of course, now drives higher productivity because you're not going to make money, let's be more productive with what we have. So similar to the case of Brazil, where you see that your sow herd has pretty much remained constant, but you're producing more and more pork, we see a similar trend happening in China. We are expecting 10% less sows with higher productivity, increasing PSY, and that is what Agrinas is here to help us with. So this is actually the projections of where we expect things to be. So you can see this for yourself. The PSY, that's how it's trending with this blue line, and then the sow stock is the red line you see over there. And of course, hog production more or less becoming more stable in a more stable outlook. Now, where are we in terms of China PSY? We're certainly improving. From 2017, you can see it was about 16.69, and you see the evolution that now we're at 18.55, about 19 PSY in China right now. This is actually quite similar to where Brazil was maybe 10, 15 years ago. And China, in a way, you think they're modern, but they're also learning from Brazil and having the best of the best over here to help teach China how to increase our production. 2017 to 18, we talked about we were at 16 to 17 PSY. A lot of smallholder backyard farms, poor genetics, poorly managed, fragmented. 2019 to 2020, we are starting to see that ASF decimated a lot of the herds. Biosecurity focus ramped up, but a lot of farms, they would preemptively kill the young sows or good sows because they can't manage it. And then with this affects the herd structure because now you don't have enough young gilts, and the gilts that as a result hurt the performance. 2021 to 2022, you start to see this improvement. We get to 17 to 18 PSY. There's a rapid rebuild. As we were saying, the government is putting a lot of money in and encouraging that we improve biosecurity. And we start to see that the market starts to import high-quality genetic stock. And this is part of the reason why we're starting to see an improvement in addition to nutrition and good farm management practices. 2023 to 2024, we're getting to 18 to 19 PSY. Now we start to see a lot of big integrators, there's consolidation in the market, and both government and industry, such as where we are now, are working closely together to improve the PSY levels. The goal is to target 20 plus PSY. So as we were sharing earlier, the quality and the productivity model, in a way, mirrors Brazil. China PSY lacks global leaders. We have global leaders around 20 to 30 PSY. Yesterday, the winner was over 40 PSY. Very impressive. China is not there yet, but that's why we're here to learn from the best and to continue to upgrade the industry. The reasons why are partly structural, disease pressure, the rebuilding impact. So basically, structure, the herd was recovering. Until recently, things were not very efficient. There's the disease pressure from ASF, endemic issues. So many farms are focusing on how do I survive? How do I make money and not shut down instead of optimizing, right? But we're starting to see a lot of improvement now. And now herds are rebuilding with young gilts, and there's very fast expansion that's happening in the market. So the trend is clear. China is moving from, I just want as many sows as possible, give me quantity, to giving me good quality. And we are focusing a lot on productivity. So this is exactly the story of Brazil and how it has really changed over the years. So this is the systemic approach of working, which is already present here, that China is really starting to learn from. We have the professional project management team, align goals, have that big paper chart that you guys write on with your workers, having clear milestones and action plan. And then we do the monthly reviewing of progress in the farm, updating the action plan, and essentially look at improving performance continuously. So at the end of the day, I think China's biggest lesson from Brazil is that to achieve best performance, you need three things: good genetics, great nutrition, Cargill, and good farm management that AgriNest software actually helps us with. Now, we talked a lot about PSY, but not all PSY is low. AgriNest Chinese farmers are leading the way. If we look at this chart over here, we compare it to Netherlands, Brazil, Argentina, Colombia, the US, and we have the AgriNest Chinese farms that are coming in with 24.3 PSY versus the average in China of about 19 PSY. So we have seen that since we brought AgriNest to China, it has really helped the industry as well. Here are some statistics. I'm not going to bore you too much. Oh, you want the previous page? Okay. Aquí. Esperando. So you can actually see the evolution. We don't have so much data for China because we only started entering the benchmarking in this year because we finally achieved more than 50 farms in China. So thanks to the AgriNest team over here, that's how we only have 1 year of data. But hopefully after this, we can participate in more and more of this benchmarking and help grow the industry together. Okay, I will move on. I won't go into super strong details of the average, top 10 and top 50. We have these reports, we can share it with you and the AgriNest team has it. But I just wanted to draw your attention that we have very successfully decreased NPD. When we started the training in China, nobody was paying attention to non-reproductive days. Nobody. We were looking at, live bonds, your average litter size, but people were not paying attention to NPD. And thanks to work of Marian and the team, we started a 6-month consultation process with all the countries we work for in Asia to do a monthly assessment, like what we were talking about, check-in, continuous improvement, feedback from management, goal setting. And if you see, the average is 25, close to 26. We have brought it down to about 22 for the top 50, and almost 15 for the top 10. Very impressive, all in 1 year. So it's really, really incredible. And you can see the difference for 2023 to 2024. And I will now move to the next page. This one just shows by the size. Yesterday for the mayor's award ceremony, it was by the size of the farms. So you may look at what applies to your category and see how the Chinese farms compare. Okay? Now, the topic of our talk is the evolution of pig farming in China, right? So where are we right now? How does modern Chinese farming look like? Now, here we go. Let's take a look. Very modern building, 26 stories. I think a pig never imagined they would stay in a condominium with aircon and taking up the elevator, But this is what you see in China. Absolutely mind-blowing. 2 buildings, each one 600,000 cells, pigs, and you get 1.2 million pigs in this building. So pretty impressive, and we've put together a video, and now let's take a look.
A suinocultura na China é muito diversa e rica. De edifícios modernos de alto padrão para pequenas residências e grutas de montanha. Cada modelo apresenta vantagens e desafios próprios. Mas todos contribuem significativamente para garantir o abastecimento de carne de porco para o mercado interno e protegendo o meio ambiente. Isso também mostra a força e potencial de desenvolvimento da suinocultura. Neste país, os agricultores chineses descobriram um inesperado solução de pecuária em altitude. Eles não só criam porcos em prédios modernos de alto padrão, mas também aproveitamos cada metro quadrado de terra, em pequenas residências e até em cavernas de montanha. Em 2023, a China criou cerca de 434 milhões de porcos. Além disso, Nenhum país consome mais carne de porco do que a China, que consome metade do porco mundial. Nesse contexto, os suinocultores devem produzir, assegurar o maior fornecimento possível. O governo chinês também testou novo método de criação de porcos. Você consegue imaginar como será uma fazenda de porcos no futuro? Como uma empresa em Ezhou City, Hubei, na China Central. A empresa está criando porcos em um prédio de 26 andares. Tecnologias avançadas são adotadas. Uma operação é realizada por meio de um sistema central. A produção anual pode atingir 600 mil.
The video was not loading the sound. Sorry, guys. We basically tried to stitch many videos explaining this with the AI translator.
A suinocultura na China é muito diversa e rica. De edifícios modernos de alto padrão para pequenas residências e grutas de montanha. Cada modelo apresenta vantagens e desafios próprios. Mas todos contribuem significativamente para garantir o abastecimento de carne de porco para o mercado interno e protegendo o meio ambiente. Isso também mostra a força e potencial de desenvolvimento da suinocultura. Neste país, os agricultores chineses descobriram um inesperado: solução de pecuária em altitude. Eles não só criam porcos em prédios modernos de alto padrão, mas também aproveitamos cada metro quadrado de terra, em pequenas residências e até em cavernas de montanha. Em 2023, a China criou cerca de 434 milhões de porcos. Além disso, nenhum país consome mais.
Okay. Now, so we've seen a feel of how it is like in China, and what happened was also the same event that we were here at. We actually had the first AgriNet Next last year in China, in Zhengzhou. You can see Everton over here carrying a nice, cute panda. And essentially, we launched the first benchmarking report in China, and we had a great turnout, and we had a big celebration, a bit similar to this. To give you a sense of how it looks like, here we go.
Então, fica ligado que daqui a pouco a gente vai lançar mais uma versão do AgriNet Next.
Hola! Everton said this, welcome to the event, and here we are at the event in Brazil. Amazing. For now, we would like to also bring Vinny on stage. Please, Vinny. And we would like to take this opportunity that we have done an amazing event and experience the hospitality of the team and all of you here to also extend our appreciation to the AgriNet team. They don't know about this part.
Obrigado, Zing. Tá funcionando aqui? Bom, pessoal, bom dia. A AgriNet, né, tá sempre impulsionando a prosperidade no campo e reconhecendo tantos os produtores como os parceiros da indústria para ajudar a impulsionar aí toda a indústria para frente. A gente gostaria de aproveitar essa oportunidade para também fazer um reconhecimento especial para a AgriNet. Então, eu gostaria de chamar aqui no palco o Everton, o Elton, o Gelson, o Hoff, a Mariana, a Miriam, o Jeft e a Lara.
Cristina.
Que foram, além de toda a equipe da AgriNet, foram as pessoas que a gente teve mais próximo aí nesse projeto de levar o propósito da AgriNet para a China. Então, esse ano, dentro da Cargill, que é a maior empresa do agronegócio do mundo, com mais de 160 anos de história, mais de 160 mil funcionários, todo ano premia os projetos mais inovadores. Tem uma premiação chamada Breakthrough Awards, que é quem está rompendo as barreiras do que é possível no agronegócio. Nesse último ano, tiveram mais de 33 mil pessoas e 580 projetos que foram nominados para essa premiação. Uma coisa que, para mim, que estou na Cargill faz 16 anos, algo que eu via como impossível um dia atingir esse reconhecimento. E nesse projeto com a Agrinas, a gente foi um dos 3 vencedores nesse ano de 2025. Então, a gente queria agradecer a parceria, né, com a Agrinas, de estar ajudando realmente a mudar, né, a produção animal além, né, da fronteira brasileira. E a gente que é brasileiro sente um orgulho enorme, né, de estar exportando a tecnologia, a gestão, metodologia para ajudar ainda mais pessoas a prosperar nesse mundo. Então, a gente preparou um troféu para entregar aqui para vocês. E a Zing também trouxe aqui um canope, que chama, que fala, né, como que o time da China traduziu o propósito. Você não consegue abrir? Como que o time da China traduziu, né, o propósito da Agrinas para levar para as outras partes, para comunicar o propósito da Agrinas na China. Então, a gente queria tirar uma foto com vocês e pedir uma salva de aplausos, né, para o time da Agrinas, que realmente está fazendo história no mundo, não só no Brasil, mas no mundo.
I have something to say. This is a gift from China. Chinese words, very beautiful calligraphy. What it says is, we must first let the pig farmers get prosperous. We have to have prosperity for the farmers, for the industry, and this is exactly why we're here, to improve the industry together and have prosperity. Okay, photo? Okay. Obrigada. Thank you.
Valeu, valeu.
Para ser o que for e ser tudo.
No? Okay, it's fine. Now that the surprise is over, we have also come to the end of this presentation. I'm around, the team is around. Feel free to ask us any questions. And with that, we just want to say a big thank you. Thanks so much.
Ziggy,
Okay.
Chris, give you our trophy.
Oh, nice. Obrigada. Thank you. Obrigada. Do we take a picture here?
No inverno te proteger, no verão sair pra pescar, no outono te conhecer, primavera poder
Ufa!
gostar.
Tô tentando me recuperar aqui. Vocês aprontaram, né, seus filhos da mãe? É muito difícil falar, porque eu acho que tem que agradecer vocês, né? Porque nós, brasileiros, que fizemos isso. Todos vocês. Tudo que tem no S4, que tem no S2, né, Nilson Volozin? Veio muito, muito de vocês, de sugestões que vocês nos dão, que a gente implementou. Quando a gente criou a metodologia, vocês abriram a porta para a gente aplicar. E quem diria, né? Então, que a nossa tecnologia está ajudando a impulsionar a suinocultura fora do Brasil e que tudo nasceu aqui. Num país que exporta a vida inteira, o que mais exporta é commodity, a gente exportar conhecimento é uma coisa... É o Brasil exportando conhecimento e tecnologia para os chineses, cara. Os caras que estão 200 anos na nossa frente. Então, tá difícil segurar aqui, desculpa, pessoal.